Welcome to SydDT number 81. And next month is our 82nd meetup, obviously, and also our 8th birthday. So someone from the rest of the team will talk about that in a moment.
There will be cake.
There will be cake.
You guys will eat it.
So tonight we're lucky to have Nathan Baird, and he's going to talk to us about establishing and scaling a kick-ass innovation design practice. Looking forward to it. Just to kick off, just want to acknowledge that we're on Gadigal country and pay respects to elders past, present and future. Also, haven't updated the number there, number 81. A huge thanks to ThinkPlace for hosting us and sponsoring us. Michelle, who's still at the back for now, and Brenton, thank you very much. Any words you would like to say? Other than fun?
Yeah.
Not
Hey guys, thanks again for coming along. It's great to see so many fresh faces and keen faces. And thanks to Nathan for speaking and Sydney Design Thinking for organising again. Thanks guys.
Awesome. Thanks for having us. And the team that brings us to you every month is Kate, Zoe, Harley's in Melbourne at the Girls in Tech conference, so she's not with us tonight. But all volunteer run and bring this to you every month out of the love of it. Don't we? Boy, that was enthusiastic. Moving right along. So, as mentioned, we're lucky to have Nathan tonight. Nathan actually did part of his book launch tour back February 2020. It was the second last one before the lockdowns, the first lockdown. So he wrote a book which you've paid as part of your ticket. So grab a copy, he's stashing them back here so you don't run off with them prematurely.
Are they signed, Nathan?
They are.
Hey!
In two, assigned by one of my daughters.
Oh.
So I guess you never make it work there.
But where are the personalized messages, or did you just?
No, they're all very personal.
They're all. He went through the door list.
Yeah. And as I drank more alcohol, they became more personal.
More creative. I love.
Yes,
You got to have
more creative.
creative.
That's the word I think of.
Awesome. So I'm going to get out of the way and you're going to do your thing. Yeah, game on.
Excellent. Fantastic.
And I believe, I'll check everyone online can see, but there's your camera.
Cool.
Thank you.
Can we get a photo first?
Okay, perfect.
Let's pretend this is the end of the session and you had a great time. Come on, take a good time. Excellent. We'll get one on the book later. Right now, I thought I'd go with a really long title. Yeah. So I'd shorten it on here, but it's establishing a kick-ass design-led innovation practice. Because I know some of you are designers, some of you are innovators, and you know, I'm going to use the two words interchangeably. So it was 3 years ago since I was here last. We were in a different room then. I don't know where the time went. What happened?
Different building.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Different. You're in
What's happened in 3 years? Can anyone remember? Exactly. So that ended up being my only, what would you call it, in real life book launch. It was the first of the series, and then COVID killed the rest of it. I've also become an Australian citizen since then, so I think you'll find the accent far easier this time. Down the back. Okay, let's rock and roll. You don't need to know about us. So what I want to talk to you about tonight is the age of the design practice, 4 steps to kick ass, and we'll have a bit of a chat. If you have got questions during, then yeah, feel free to shout them out and I'll answer them if I can. So the innovation challenge. So innovation is one of the most important endeavours of modern times. Can you hear me down the back? Excellent. I grew up in sheep farms, so I'm used to shouting at sheepdogs. Not saying you resemble a border collie or anything like that. So yeah, we get this, but no matter who you talk to, our success rates are really low and our failure rates are really high. Yeah. So to improve our I guess, our innovation results, we're all in pursuit of the holy grail in terms of building an innovative culture. And what we've seen in the last few years is the rise of the internal design or innovation practice, to help get to that innovation culture. So I've put those design practices into 4 buckets. There are other ways to cut it, but I could do 2 by 2. I couldn't work out how to do 3-dimensional. But we'll come back to what the other parameter could be. So down the bottom here in very light pink, so you can't see it down the back, is level of funding. And then on the left-hand side, we've got organisational weight, low, high, and low and high. For the GFC, they got bought by M&C, so they're now clearing M&C. Anyway, after returning back to New Zealand to brush up my accent, okay, so what I'm going to share with you is just 4 stories, 4 experiences working for a brewery, which we've touched on a little bit, working with Better by Design, who part of New Zealand Trade and Enterprise, all about creating economic transformation by embedding design into small to medium organisations. A bank, which I've anonymised, so one of the top 4 banks in Australia, leading in the design and delivery of their design thinking experimentation program, as an external person, consultant. And then 2 to 3 years at KPMG setting up their human centred design practice. So the 4 critical steps, and well, basically setting up a skeleton team, setting the strategy to design we must sell, and resourcing to scale up. So kicking off with the skeleton team. So as design leaders or aspiring to be design leaders, I think you've got 3 big jobs. I'm not saying it's not 4 or 5, like, do your timesheets, but there's 3 big ones. And that's think, sell, and deliver. You're probably selling first, and then you got to go, shit, I need to do some thinking so we can then deliver this. Yeah? That's how I work. You're from agency land, there's no potential clients in there. So you need to think, sell, and deliver. What's the minimum you need to think and sell and deliver to launch? I appreciate you might not all be at launch, you might already be in a successful design practice. So going back to BB Breweries, we had the business as usual units. So, very well established organisation. And then, like I said, we sat in the marketing team, sorry. So we had a head of customer insight, head of innovation, which was myself, and an innovation project management officer. That's all we needed to get going. Yes, I know New Zealand's a small country, but that's all we needed to get going there, and we had some successes. KPMG, we had the firm. Yes, it is like the movie. And the customer practice. So when I joined KPMG in 2017, they probably had the smallest customer practice of all the big consultancies. So there was one partner. They weren't even actually a partner. They were something executive because they were from another country, so they legally couldn't be a partner. And a team of 12 to 15, depending on who you talk to. What do you reckon, Raoul? 12 or 15? 12. So pretty small. When I left after 3 years, there was, I have to remember now, 8 partners and over 100 people. They're now, I don't know how many partners, and 300 people. They've also merged and acquired, whatever. So there was a real focus on growing it. Okay, there was a short chapter. Setting the strategy. So obviously awesome design teams have a really good strategy. They know why they're there. They know where they're focusing their efforts. A lot of things on that slide, but this is the usual stuff, set goals and timelines, take a portfolio mindset. We'll talk about that a bit more soon. Where are they going to play or where are they going to innovate? And then obviously plans for making those happen. I really love, and you would have seen this before, this model. There's a great article on it in the Harvard Business Review from 11 years ago. It's really important you define what levels of innovation you're pursuing and actually get that from the top and get them to agree it. working for, one of those banks, all the execs were like, yeah, we're going up here. And then at the end of the ideation workshop and you've harvested them, they go, oh, that bit's scary. Can we have some less scary revolutionary ideas? The thing is risk and innovation, they ride side by side. You avoid one and you avoid the other. So our roles as innovators and designers is to de-risk innovation. And, if you imagine you're throwing a dice, you're trying to throw sixes. I know that sounds like sucks, but you know where I'm going, sixes. You want to be able to throw more sixes. So what works really well is continuously improving the core whilst inventing what's next. And we'll talk about how we can set up teams for that. I really love the 5 W's as a framework for shaping where you're going to innovate. So for pulling together the innovation strategy. This comes from journalists. This is what was first invented, or at least that's what I've heard, for writing articles. But you can use this to decide what new, existing, or lapsed customers do we want to target. So that's obviously your who. Your what is what new products, services, or technologies exist. So when I was at DB Breweries, we needed, to do a cider. We knew we did. Everyone was drinking cider, with lots of ice in it and things like that. So yes, we were jumping to a solution, but it was a massive trend. Why? So what are the needs we want to solve for? So what are those important unmet needs? And then when and where, what are the occasions we want to play in? And what are the locations we want to play in? Now you'll find different markets are driven by different W's. Yeah? So if I go back to Walls, Ice Cream, or Streets, it's very need driven. Yeah? I want indulgence. What am I going to buy? Come on, it's not that hard.
Ice cream.
Yeah, but which one? Magnum, yeah. You're going to get a Magnum. You're hungry or something. You might get a Cornetto or drumstick or whatever, yeah? Refreshment, a Solero or a Calippo or a Splice, yeah? So it's very needs driven. What about alcohol? Occasions driven, yeah? Sydney Design Thinking meetup, or I'm going to have a Cooper's. Or the red ones.
This is when you want to come and have fun. That's what I named it. So fun and fun
Exactly.
and awesome.
It wasn't actually an insult, but it's
That's my mature response.
getting hanging from the side. Loading up before you go out on Friday night, Sunday lunch, barbecue. It's very occasion driven, yeah? And then the car market's very who driven. No one got that one? Okay. Up audience. You'll get that one. So back at DB Breweries, we wanted to co-design our strategy, obviously to get a wide spectrum of views, but also get their buy-in because they're going to be working on some of these products and ideas later on. So we've got a whole lot of inspiration. So use the design thinking approach really to build our strategy. Bank out on opportunities and then continue to rinse and repeat. We'd harvest those down, craft those up into blueprints. They'll be called a canvas now. And then that would flow into our agile process. It's not really agile, it's waterfall. I do love agile though. Agile to me is like coffee. I heard they're going to build the second bridge over the harbour using agile. Are they going to ship stages or is it going to have those loops? Like the slot car step? That's one. Yeah. Qantas is also using agile to fly non-stop to London. I don't know. Go and see Ben, he's an agile expert. Okay, I was lucky enough during COVID to be saved by the ATO. What was it? Job savers? Job keeper. Wasn't actually job keeper, they gave me a job. Working with Rob, working with Misha and a few other people. What I loved about one of the things, the ATO is, I think, the oldest and biggest design branch within government, probably even within Australia. Come and see Rob if you want a job. What I love they do here is they match their resources and how they're going to deploy to their strategy, yeah? So they go and they're an internal consultancy for the rest of the ATO, yeah? So if they're doing a very highly important project and it's more revolutionary innovation, then the design branch, so Rob and the other 100 or so, they all partner with you end-to-end working side by side. Yep, makes sense. If it's only medium importance and evolutionary, then they'll guide you and they'll just facilitate you through key stages. If it's a low priority and it's just core innovation, here's the toolkit, knock yourself out. Yeah. So what are you offering as, your internal design practice? Are you prioritizing the work that's coming in the door? Are you saying no to some of it, or are you saying yes to all of it and just working your asses off and burning out? Yeah. So it's a good idea to prioritize, triage, what are you going to call it, and decide where you want to focus your efforts internally. Okay, I think this is probably the, which is why I got the bell to ring, the most important one. To design, we must sell. Being a designer and innovator, it's freaking hard, isn't it? Fernando and I were just talking about before how hard this is, We've both got grey hair now. We're actually only in our 20s. And one of the key things is selling. You've got to sell when you're in a design or innovation role. And no, I don't mean, the used car salesman. None of us wants to be that. And so no matter which practice you're in, which box you want to put yourself in, you've got to sell. We're persuading, we're convincing, we're influencing. We often work across the organisation, don't we, and up the organisation, and we're having to influence. We don't have line authority over these people. We've got to coerce them, we've got to rally them. So now I get to talk about KPMG. Anyone from KPMG here? Any partners? So it probably wasn't so I'm going back to that same model, probably wasn't as low as that role at Clear, MNC Saatchi. It was, pushing up here. So it was, medium, low, medium funding and low, medium organisational wide mandate. So the role was to establish KPMG's design thinking practice, or human-centered design practice. As I said, we already had a small team, but there were another 600 partners and 10,000 employees just in Australia. So there's a lot that we could leverage. In consultancy, I don't know if you're familiar with the term, you eat what you kill. It's pretty much that. So as a partner, you've got to bring in a shitload of money or you get killed. So you have revenue KPIs of X million dollars per annum. And I was looking at my little black book and going, I'm not going to bring that in. Because I was running my own practice before, like I am now. And, it doesn't have several $1 million worth of contacts in there. So the solution was to tap into those 600 partners that you saw before. The barrier was they were already hitting their targets. So why would they go along and do this fluffy design thinking thing with, flip charts and post-it notes, that fuzzy front end of innovation? I mean, would you? You guys are all biased. So I basically, went back to my early marketing days. It's the marketing cone if you don't recognise it. And adopted a bit of a push and a pull strategy. So pull was like sales promotions, So you bring people up, pushes, advertising, all those sorts of things. So I went to every single meetup, coffee, whatever, that I could when I first joined, every little conference, team event they had. With the logic, if I kissed enough frogs, I'd find enough design princes and princesses. And not bothering trying to convert the design healers. Yeah. What we also did is set up design thinking leads in each geography. So some lessons learned from MNC Saatchi or Claire, where I was trying to go around all those different regions. What I needed was some champions in each one. And then also in each other teams, almost like spies. And then so I just had to check if there's any partners here. So then I mapped the partners. And I use mindset down the bottom, for those of you who can't see it, and ambition. So down the bottom, you've got a fixed mindset or an open mindset. Don't post this, will you, on social media? It is like the firm, they will hunt me down. And then ambition, I had comfortable and I had hungry. And then there were a few from those 600 partners and directors and the collaborators. So they were open to this new way of working and their ambitions. So once again, in your organisation, if you're internal focus or even external, who are the ones you want to be working for? Who are your collaborators? What are your different parameters there that you're going to define your 4 boxes? Have a think about who you want to go after. Life's too short to waste our time over here and even over here. Cool. So Better by Design did a really good job of selling. So, New Zealand does have a good reputation, and Laura can back me up, for design and innovation. Spring-free trampoline, the blunt umbrella, America's Cup, us and Aussies won it in the 80s. Lots of things. But anyway, in New Zealand, you've got, Fonterra, the big dairy company, and then you've got Daylight for everyone else. Fonterra is bigger than tourism in New Zealand. Yeah. So the idea was, if we could embed design into the operating model, the culture of all these small to medium firms, organisations, then we could create some economic transformation. Yeah. Which is a lot more doable when you've got a population of, 5, 6 million, whatever it is. Is it up to 8 million now? So some of the winning initiatives they did, they had a CEO summit, which is really aspirational, a big draw card. They have some of the best design and innovation speakers from around the world and from New Zealand. So you had, I remember the CEO from Patagonia came on, head of design for IKEA, Google, all those sorts of organisations. And then, the chairman in New Zealand is the founder of Icebreaker, the merino clothing company. You had Rob Drury from Xero and people like that talk. It showed the art of the possible. And then to go through their process, there was the CEO enrolment step, gate 1. And it was a two-way street. They'd check the interest and commitment of the CEO. It's not like we're just going to give you government money and you can just, go and have some jollies and not do any work. So they looked at both the potential and the capability. They had to commit a full-time, design resource to lead that. Then there was the boot camp, so that was generosity. So there was a 1-day boot camp to trial it, see if it was for you. Once again, we were still sussing them out and testing them whether they were right for us as well. And then there were study tours. So went on a study tour up Silicon Valley. They started running to New York, Scandinavia, seeing to believe. And then you can become alumni, peer learning networks, opportunity to give back, exemplar case studies, staff swaps, all sorts of things like that. It's a fantastic program. And that's that process. So all those things I talked about, this is their process. This is the process behind that. So you see you got the enrolment here, gate 1, sussing out the CEO, like I said, the generosity around the boot camp, and then a whole lot of plays which were actually innovating or designing, but building capability at the same time. Go through a waypoint and, rinse and repeat. That could be something you use, internally with your customers internally or with your external customers, if you're B2B and things like that. Any questions on selling? All good? Okay, so resourcing to scale up. So you've had some wins. You've set up your skeleton team. You've sold enough work. You've sold too much work. So now you've got to resource it. So you want to, once again, create the resources to match your innovation ambition levels. So remember we talked about that earlier on. So what we find is centralised teams with their own funding work really well for breakthrough innovation. But then for innovating the core, just do that within the BAU units, the business as usual units. Give them some permission, some money. Yeah. And you might work in one or other of those teams, but you don't need to do both. You're still connected. And then design structures that accelerate those different types of innovation. So breakthrough innovation requires executive thought. You're going to struggle to do breakthrough innovation, in a guerrilla way. It also requires extra as well as different resources from the rest of the business. And think broadly about and creatively about how you resource this up. So you can hire people, you can acquire people, you can train them, you can partner, and you can network, yeah? So my numbers in the back of the Wacom network and and partner. Okay, and then that anonymous bank. So they wanted to maintain their technology innovation leadership in the financial services sector. To do that, they felt they had to build the innovation capability of their technology group. Yeah, 4,000 to 5,000 people. At this bank, the pink bank we'll call it, this is their capability or competency model. So you've got people who get trained up to be expert, advanced, sound, or aware. So of those 5,000 people, we're at about roughly 3,600 in aware, 1,000 in sound, 250 in advanced, and 150 in expert. Those experts we took through 11 days of training. We worked on real company projects. We did study visits around Sydney. We took them through a train the trainer program, which I'll come back to now, because they trained aware on their own, which is a half-day program, and they co-trained sound with us, which was 2 days. And then the advanced were just the poor cousins of experts. So yeah, they got to do 4 days. Make sense? So a massive program to change the culture. Lessons learned from that. For some, there was a challenge because they had no previous innovation background, so you're training them from scratch. And there's a bit of imposter syndrome. How do I build my DT, design thinking reputation? Now, some of them went to go and work in their lab and really built up that expertise, and others, applied it on their job. So it came in time. It was a bit of a silo mentality. We only trained the tech group. We all know innovation's a cross-functional sport. The CIO at the time, had the ambition, had the budget. So, that's what we did, and we trained that. It started to then flow out to the rest of the business. There were challenges like, the rest of the business who's sort of in charge of the customer going, hey, you tech team, why are you telling me all about the customer and what their needs are and things like that? So there were those sort of issues to deal with. Probably a New Zealand or Australian country term. There's a challenge with sheep dipping everybody, training all 5,000. You do that, you're going to get some hostages and some holiday makers, as well as the learners. So we had to deal with the hostages and the holiday makers who didn't want to be there. You really got to have leadership involved in the entire journey. And then, like I said, it was a vanguard for success across the bank, e.g. a lot of those people then coached in the lab. So moving back to KPMG, 6 years ago. So what we did is we started building out that customer practice. So we hired some core people within the human-centered design team. Around the same time, the firm acquired a research consultancy, a boutique consultancy. They had great qual and quant researchers. And then obviously the elephant in the room was all the KPMG consultants. So a little bit like Claire, M&C Saatchi, but there was a lot more of them. And they also, this time around, had the appetite. But we're mostly training them to be consultants, not to be trainers. So this is the program we took them through. So a couple of things that jumped out a little bit there. Pretty much followed the see one, do one, teach one model. Took lessons from all those previous journeys and experiences. We did a call for applications, so we made people apply. So I was lucky enough to work on IAG's IAG by Design, their human-centered design program quite a few years ago as well. So we advertised internally, there's limited spaces, we created scarcity. So we had more applicants than we could take on. We made sure when we're sifting through those applicants that we had that geographical spread and as well as across the organisation. C1, we ran a 3-day intensive training going through design thinking and experimentation. We ran it in Sydney and Melbourne. We had 48 participants. People flew in from the other geographies. So we then had a base of trained consultants that we could start bringing in on projects. And they could also start selling across the firm. We kept doing talent identification. Then do one, we started bringing them, like I said, in on those projects. Further upskilling, but also further assessment of their attitude and aptitude. Are they right to develop further? And then teach one, we ran a 2-day train the trainer program with 12 or 18 people from the 48. And then they were able to scale across the organisation because I couldn't spend all my time doing internal training when I had to be out selling, So it freed up my time. And then we rolled it out across the firm. So KPMG is a management consultancy, but also tax and audit. So we can train tax and audit. So that was delivered by those trained trainers. Through the whole journey, we worked with the people and culture team. So we had firm-wide capability, firm-wide endorsers, and internal sales team almost, selling to each other and to our clients, and build that legacy around that. So lessons learned from that, in terms of, I guess, mostly picking on what would we do better next time. Build a stronger community of practice with regular get-togethers like this. So that would have been awesome. Handing over responsibility to scaling HCD to the trained trainers is like, the message gets diluted, unfortunately. So stay closer to selection development of the subsequent cohorts of people who are trained up to be trainers. So there are the 4 critical steps. There is some order to them. It doesn't mean once you've done them, they're finished. Yes, there'll be other things. But, from my experience and distilling those 4 experiences are the 4 key things for me. I just also want to do a little plug for Good Design Australia. So I'm ambassador for Good Design Australia, which is a great honour. And this year, it's 65 years of good design. Entries have just closed last week. I think Brandon's got too many. But it's going to be a big year. It's going to be a big celebration. And they support designers and, government and business, not-for-profit, for charity. It's fantastic having an organisation like that in Australia. We're very lucky. Is there anything you want to add, Brandon? Or come and see Brandon at the end. He's obviously the one with the cool designer haircut. Sorry. He's also a lovely guy. So that's it. Do come and grab a copy of my book. Reach out if you're going to, come and see me if you've got any questions, but reach out if you want to connect or grab a coffee or drink anytime. That's it.
Yeah. Do we have any questions? Okay.
So can I say one more thing? Only one more. So I know I'm a bit biased, but the book is an easy read because there's no accent. You got to insert your own accent over. Yeah, totally.
Right. Thank you so much. That was awesome. We will all be. I know Ben's getting there. It's okay. Hold. Keep your enthusiasm.
Any questions first?
We will be heading to the pub afterwards as well. So keep your questions coming, and then afterwards we head to the pub, and then you can fully interrogate him because it'll be off camera.
Are you going to the pub?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm going to go to Wollongong tomorrow.
Awesome. So questions for Nathan. I'm checking online as well.
Right. Which pub?
Go to the important stuff.
The one that's the strongest warm beer.
It's around the corner.
The closest one, which is the strawberry.
Hey, we got one down the back, yes, or middle. It's carrot and stick. It's using things like the 10 types of innovation. It's using stuff from Good Design Australia and from the British Design Council and all that sort of stuff. There's some good slides in the 10 types of innovation. It shows those organisations who innovate versus the Standard & Poor's top 500. And, it just smashes them. So it's stuff like that. And you need the money slides. Who's the new CEO for Qantas? CFO. So, Yeah.
Got a question for you, Nate. Great presentation as always. Love your slides. You talked about that bottom quarter, of the map, that gorilla area. Have you had much experience, working in that space? Because I look at your directory and, you've worked in some really big companies, right? So I can really identify with you dealing with people like KPMG and the Unknown Bank. But have you had much experience working with that sort of, because it feels like what you were referring to was almost like a startup.
Yeah, you're almost like you're a startup within that organisation. People here tonight.
And I know that she's worked a lot with startups, so she's a great person to talk about. Sorry, Cassandra, if I'm talking on your behalf. But when Cassandra spoke a talk recently, she talked about really scaling the same mentality that you would have a bigger enterprise, you know, for a startup. And I just wondered, you know, what's your thoughts around applying strategy?
This sort of methodology.
Yeah, methodology.
I've done a lot of it. It's not being a capitalist, but you know, often the money's not there. And so the work with Better by Design was great because it was government funded. And so I got to do that and got to work with a lot of those organisations, and even the big ones, well, you know, medium sized like Les Mills, you know, who do body pump and step and all that. And you know, for them, they've got the, you know, I'll call it agility and stuff now. But what they don't have is the rigor and the structure and the systems. And then obviously we build all that. And so then you need to bring that startup mentality back into the corporates. Yeah. So it's almost bringing what the corporates have into startups and the startups into corporates. That helps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I was just sort of like fishing a bit to find out if you've ever been sort of poached or something like to try and help get that off the ground. Like, you know, so those organizations that are startups come to you and say, like, you know, can you give us a scaled down version of your methodology that can get us started?
Yeah, I haven't yet.
Okay.
There's time yet.
Thanks, Kevin.
No worries. Yeah, no.
What do you do if you have buy-in from a CEO, but you're in a large, complex organization, and there's other teams that are actively sort of stopping that mandate coming up from the grassroots?
Are they stopping them, Ash, or are they competitors?
Repeat the question.
I'd say that it's a mix of the satiated cats and scaredy cats.
So just to repeat the question for those online and that. So what do you do in a large organisation when you've got CEO buy-in and mandate, but you've got other teams who are either getting in the way or competing? You've got to
come to the table.
Yeah. Well, I think it goes back to that matrix, you know, work out which ones you do want to work with. You know, we're, you know, the quick wins, the low-hanging fruit, but, you know, who are the collaborators and work with them first. I mean, there's also the logic that you know, pick the hardest team to work with, and if you convert them, you get everyone else. But, you know, you might die doing that. So, you know, from banging your head against the wall. So, yeah, find the path of least resistance. That's what I do. And if there isn't one, then, you know, you can keep persevering and being resilient, or you can leave. You know, leaving is an option, you know. I mean, I don't normally say it's a crowd, but I knew my first week at KPMG, I wasn't going to stay there forever. It wasn't my thing, you know. And I stayed almost 3 years, and we did some cool work, met some great people like Raoul. Yeah. But it wasn't my thing. Yeah. Can't leave. Sorry.
Not enough people say that. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Keep pursuing your passions and your dreams. Yeah. You've already had one. You got a better accent, mate.
Oh, yeah, Dutch accent. Yeah, how do you find your fit? Like, that's something that a lot of people are wondering, like.
I don't find my feet.
Thing.
Oh, think.
Yeah.
I was happy to go and find your feet. I think I was lucky. I mean, I did the whole lemonade stand, you know, when I was a kid or whatever. It was actually plums. Because we, you know, my granddad had a great plum tree, but we can talk about that later. I studied marketing at university and really got into branding and brand management and all that sort of stuff. Did a thesis on brand management, even though I failed every single subject in my year 12. And through that branding and Unilever, you know, I came across innovation. And, you know, that was in 2000. So I've been lucky. I've been doing what I'm passionate about. I'm very lucky. You know, I know other people are still searching. But, you know, I've had some shit jobs, as you saw. You know, I had a brand management role with no money, no budget. You know, I worked for the firm. Yeah, some people are happy there, by the way. Some people love it. It's good for some people. If you work in design, I wouldn't go there. But granted.
I think I asked you this question at your last
No.
preso, which years ago. It's interesting to hear if it's changed. But can you talk about design-led companies? Like, give us an example of one or two Aussie companies that are like truly design-led, or international ones.
Yeah. Team New Zealand, who has often many Aussies on the boat. You know, The next America's Cup, and I know Australia doesn't follow it as much since the win Keel in the 80s. But anyway. Don't mention them all. You guys won it, didn't you? First time in 200 years. So there's several teams. The next competition's in Barcelona, I think. It's in Spain. Several of the other teams are working with Formula One racing companies. You know, Team New Zealand, they're like, you know, on the boats you've got the grinders, you know, to get the sails going up and down and trim them. They're like, what else can you create revolutions with? Well, what about a bike? So they put what they called cyclers on the boats, because you know your quads, your thighs are bigger than your shoulders. You know, and the rest is history. They won the America's Cup that year. They'll bring them back this year because they're going from a team of 11 down to the 8. So they're very, I mean, it's all about design-led, and innovating, you know, every part of design. I think in Australia there's bits and pieces here and there, you know.
No.
Yeah, I don't think there's I can't think of one organisation that's got the whole lot and glued it all together. You know, I'm sure Atlassian's doing stuff, you know, Hot Clear, you know, some of the consumer goods companies.
I worked there. No.
No, there you go. Yeah. But yeah, I don't think anyone's really doing it all. You know, ATO, the design brand, they're doing aspects of it. Yeah. There's heaps of room for improvement.
Who do you like in terms of like when you're like selling and you're trying to sell different, you know, like different areas of like the whole design system scale and all of that. Who do you like in terms of like company size or area, like public, government, like sorry, private government? Like who do you think's like more open? Like have you noticed like a trend one way or another, if that's like startup-y space or, you know, massive international space?
We're small, so our, you know, there's no statistical significance behind the work we do. But
for your sample size of one.
Yeah. So we do quite a bit in consumer goods.
Yeah.
Which is harder in Australia because some of them are, you know, the backwater or the back office or whatever. So you're probably not going to work for a Unilever or Procter & Gamble in Australia. But there are others, you know, like Dulux Group, where they're big here. I mean, often I think if you're going to run your own consultancy in Australia, you need to work for a bank. So that's a big part of the economy here. I mean, I haven't worked with a bank for a few years. We do quite a lot of work with government now. Yeah, Department of Education, doing a lot of work with them. Primary sector, so, you know, ag tech, doesn't have to be ag tech, but yeah, it's a big area. Brandon and them have been doing some work with Bega Valley and some cool stuff there. Yeah, I mean, just anyone who's got a problem. Burning
It's like more like government's been having like, let's take it like for example, the government's been trying to play in this space for a while.
Yeah.
In all different areas, like how many different departments in government?
Yeah.
But do you think like, you know, has there actually been a trickle-on effect? Has there been, you know, like even the places which have been trying to use like, you know, various UXy, design thinking, whatever label they want to put on it, like do you think they're actually growing in maturity? Do you think that's spreading between the different places? Do you think, like there was certainly for quite a while, a long time when people were like, oh, let's do that UXy design thinky thing and that's like nice and shiny and new. But do you think the awareness is like actually growing? Yeah,
I think it has. I mean, we did the bank one in 2014 to 15. Around the same time we did IOG, and that was IDEO flying and some local providers, including Ophir, who's, you know, now the Chief Design Officer at ANZ. So he did that with Matt Hanson and Michelle, someone, and IDEO. And I mean, IOG have got different teams and departments now. What we're seeing is a lot of those venture teams now. So actually bringing in startups like CBA's, you know, X15 Ventures. So it's sort of seeing a lot of that now. So we're moving away from just the, you know, the flashy showroom lab where nothing ever comes out of it, to actually having startups in the organisation that the organisation's investing into. There's a lot of community practices within government. So there's a New South Wales one, there's a, you know, Fed government ones. But they're all like us, you know, they're all banging their heads against the wall. It's bloody hard, and that's why we're going to sell. But it is starting to, you know, spread out to the other parts of the organisation. But you're always going to have your naysayers and your haters and your design heathens and, you know, everything else. It's a tough gig. It's a bloody tough gig being a designer and innovator. But we do it because we're passionate about it.
So I think my question would be, because you mentioned selling is important, it's an important component. So what was maybe in the past, what could be I wouldn't say biggest, but potentially maybe one time you actually failed to sell, and what was the lesson learned about that?
Failed to sell?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So if you're still there online, we're all having drinks now. What's maybe my biggest failure in terms of selling and what the lessons learned? I think that M&C Saatchi one, that clear role, you know, this probably wouldn't have happened anyway, but, you know, you needed a champion for that capability, for that function in each region. That would have really helped. But then, you know, there were 5 regions, so that were 5 people to hire. This was an organisation that was global, but there were probably 100 or so people. So it's not huge. So, yeah, you would have had those people. That's the thing, you know, you push the CEO for it and the CEO of each of the countries, and if it's not there, then, yeah, maybe you should leave. So, getting back to that lesson. Yeah. You know, you're hitting against the wall so many times. Yeah. You know what's happening in, you know, union and league and American football. You know, concussion. Okay. Anything else? We done? Going well?
Awesome.
Going twice?
Thank you. Tell us about how the book's going to work and the cards.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So, like I said, the book's an easy read. There's nothing. It's a toolkit. It's all the tools going through that front end of the innovation journey. There's nothing in my talk in that book, I don't think. Yeah, this talk's the next book. There's a set of digital design thinking method cards which go with this, a perfect complement. This is like the method cards with all the stories and all that around it. The digital method cards won a Good Design Australia award a few years ago. I don't think it took out the top prize, but you did all right in this category. How are we going to get them to the people?
I'm going to send you a message with a link to download it. I think that's what we decided on.
So it's a clickable PDF. Yeah, have fun with it. You grab a book. Anything else you want to say?
So we'll thank Nathan again. We'll do a quick wrap up. And it is a great book. So great that I referenced it multiple times in my book and said everyone who read my book should grab Nathan's book as well. So you get it. So you're getting started.
Yeah, Ben's book's good too.
Get to the right place. So Nathan was saying thank you. And just a quick wrap up. So a couple of quick announcements before we all bolt to the pub. Oh, yes. Next month, our 8th birthday, go to SydDT.org or hit that QR code. And anything you want to say, Zoe, Lucas, I'm going to be diving on a Great Barrier Reef, so I'll miss our 8th birthday. Anything you want to say about the 8th birthday? Alan will be caked.
Yeah, it looks good to see everyone come back again, have a bit of fun.
We are making plans. I just don't want to
disclose yes.
Interactive games. So you guys are it's going to be fun.
You guys are the content.
You guys are the content.
Okay, and on the 27th of March at the UTS Business School, we've got the Social Enterprise Festival. So it's free, it's on a Saturday. And if you are curious about social enterprise, doing social enterprise, don't know what it is, but wondering what it might be, then we've got an all-day festival on Saturday, 27th. It's free. If you go to secna.org.au/events or hit that QR code, you'll be able to sign up for it. And I hope to see you all there. I'll be running a panel at 11 o'clock on social enterprise and food and how food and social enterprise are playing together. So that should be a bit of fun. And it's free?
No, 10 to 3.
Oh, and 10 to 3 is the all day. So it's not like 8:30 till 8 o'clock. Hey, Rob or Kevin, you want to do a shout out about interaction? Don't forget IXD24. Okay, get your book, go to the pub. Thanks everyone online. It's great to see you.